co-chairing this task force, and Attorney General Garland, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, and Veterans Affairs Secretary McDonough for your work on this task force. To protect access to a woman's right to choose reproductive health care in the wake of the Supreme Court's extreme decision of wiping out a 50-year constitutional precedent of Roe v. Wade. You know, I created this task force by executive order last month and to ensure that every part of the federal government does its part at this critical moment where women's health and lives are on the line amidst chaos and uncertainty unleashed by this decision. Emergency medical care being denied to women experiencing miscarriages. Doctors uncertain about what they can do to provide for the patients. Pharmacists unsure whether they can fill prescriptions that they've always filled before. A tragic case of rape survivors, including a 10-year-old girl forced to travel to another state for care, you know, wiping out the right to choose on whether you have incest, incest, or having a rape, or, I mean, this is just extreme. You know, even the life of the mother is in question in some cases, in some states. Republicans in Congress and their extreme MAGA ideology are determined to go even further, talking about nationwide bans that would outlaw abortion in every state under every circumstance, going after the broader right to privacy as well. But as I said before, this fight is not over. And we saw that last night in Kansas. In the opinion of the people, the opinion of the Dobbs case, the extreme majority of the Supreme Court wrote, women, again, this is a quote from that case, women are not without electoral or political power, unquote. Court practically dared women in this country to go to the ballot box and restore the right to choose that the court had just ripped away after 50 years. As I said last month, I don't think the court has any notion, for that matter, or the Republican Party for that matter, to decide how far to press their extreme agenda and how women are going to respond. They don't have a clue about the power of American women. Last night in Congress and Kansas, they found out women and men did exercise their electoral and political power. With a record turnout, voters of Kansas defeated a ballot initiative to remove the right to choose an abortion from the Kansas Constitution. It was in the Kansas Constitution. They're trying to strike it and eliminate it from the Kansas Constitution. In a decisive vote, in a decisive victory, voters made it clear that politicians should not interfere with the fundamental rights of women. And the voters of Kansas sent a powerful signal that this fall, the American people will vote to preserve and protect the right and refuse to let them be ripped away by politicians. And my administration has their back. No, today I'm signing the second executive order I'm about to sign that responds to the healthcare crisis that has unfolded since the Supreme Court overturned Roe and that women are facing all across America. Healthcare crisis is, you know, it's hard for me to even understand how they think this. Healthcare crisis is women can't choose, can't get an abortion even in the case of incest, even in the case of rape. But it goes beyond that. There are a lot of women who take prescriptions prescribed by their doctors and have been taking for some time for other conditions, for arthritis, for epilepsy, for Crohn's diseases. And in many cases, these prescriptions are not being filled. Say a 25-year-old woman, her doctor prescribes medication for epilepsy, has been doing it for a while. She goes to the pharmacy. The pharmacist won't fill the prescription because the same medicine could also cause a miscarriage. So she's not getting the medicine she needs for her epilepsy, whether she's pregnant or not. The pharmacy has no right to do that. Just yesterday in Idaho, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit to make sure that pregnant women facing serious threats to their health can get the medical care they need in Medicare-funded emergency rooms. Under federal law, no woman, whether pregnant or not, no matter where she lives, should be turned away or denied necessary treatment during a medical crisis. The Justice Department stepped in to make sure that this extreme state law criminalizing abortion does not put women's health and lives at risk in these situations. You know, this executive order also helps women travel out of state for medical care. Secretary Becerra is going to work with states through the Medicaid to allow them to provide reproductive health care for women who live in states where abortions are being banned in that state. The executive order makes sure healthcare providers comply with federal laws so women don't face delays or denials of medically necessary care. And this executive order advances research and data collection to evaluate the impact of this reproductive health crisis is having on maternal health and other health conditions and outcomes. This executive order builds on the first one I signed last month that created this task force in the first place. And that also will help safeguard access to health care, including the right to choose and contraception, promote safety and security of clinics, patients, and providers, protects patients' privacy and access to accurate information. Let me close with this. Beyond the actions you're taking, I know that along with Kamala, many of you have been traveling the country listening to women, healthcare providers, legal experts, state and local officials and legislators, and others, so that we are doing all we can in my administration to protect the rights of health and safety of the people of this country. You know, their perspectives are going to inform the work of this task force and the recommendations you make to me. I believe Roe got it right. It's been the law for close to 50 years. And I commit to the American people that we're doing everything in our power to safeguard access to health care, including the right to choose that women had under Roe v. Wade, which was ripped away by this extreme court. But ultimately, Congress must codify the protections of Roe as federal law. And if Congress fails to act, the people of this country need to elect senators and representatives who will restore Roe and will protect the right to privacy, freedom, and equality. I'll stop there and turn this over to the Vice President. There's so much more to say, but I'm anxious to hear from all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Do I sign this order now? I'm going to sign this executive order right now, okay? Okay, folks, we got a lot of work to do, but Madam Vice President, I'm sure you can get it done, sitting there with all those folks. Thank you. I wish I were with you in person, quite frankly, but I'm getting there. You're on mute, I can't hear you.
We feel your presence, Mr. President.
Well, I wish I were. Thank you.
Well, President Joe Biden has set the tone for our administration from the very beginning. From the time that an opinion was leaked to the time the Dobbs decision came down. And our president has been a leader in saying that the women of America should be protected. Their right to make decisions about their own bodies should be a matter that we all defend, understanding that the government should not be in the business of making those decisions for the women of America. Our administration has been very clear, as is clear by the leaders who are at this table, that we trust the judgment of the women of America to make decisions based on what they know is in their best interest. We trust the women of America to make those decisions if she chooses in consultation with her faith leader, with her physician, with her loved one. But we understand fully the government should not be making that decision for her. And it is with that spirit that the President has convened this task force of these leaders to ensure that we have a whole-of-government approach to our work, understanding that every day in America, especially with these extremist so-called leaders in states passing these laws, some of which will criminalize healthcare providers and punish women, that we do everything in our power, in our ability, based on our role to ensure that we protect the women of America around some of the most intimate decisions that any human being can make. So it is with that spirit and purpose that we convene and we meet, we will be engaged in an in-depth discussion about the role of the various agencies and the cabinet members and their roles of leadership around this important issue. As the President said, the people of Kansas spoke yesterday, and they spoke loud and clear. They said this is not a partisan issue. The women of America should not be the subject of partisan debate or perspective. The people of Kansas spoke and said this is a matter of defense of basic principles of liberty and freedom in America. And they spoke loudly in saying that they trust women to make decisions about their own lives and their bodies. And they said government should not be mandating those decisions for the women of America. So today we are prepared to do the work that is necessary. We will discuss what we have done so far as an administration, and we will discuss what we are prepared to do going forward. I have been traveling the country in recent weeks, talking with, in particular, community-based leaders, healthcare providers, state legislatures and legislators. I've convened faith-based leaders. We have convened disability rights activists, people from various sectors of our country to talk about this issue. And I will tell you, people are scared. When they look at these laws that are being passed, and they understand what it means for themselves or someone they love, they are concerned, they are confused. When you look at a map, which I have here somewhere, in terms of what this means in our country, and I don't have the map at the moment. My staff will tell me where that map is at the moment. But what we know is that there is a need for clarity around the rights of individuals and states in this moment. And so General Merrick Garland will talk about what the Department of Justice is prepared to do. We know that there are concerns about the kind of support that is available in terms of federal resources to the various states that are protecting the rights of women and what our administration can do to support that. We will be discussing what we need to do to address the profound misinformation and disinformation that is out there and can only thrive in an environment where there is confusion about what is the right approach and what is the law. So these are some of the topics that we will be discussing. But again, all convened with an understanding and an appreciation for the fact that this, as the President has said, represents a healthcare crisis in America, where women every day in our country, whoever they voted for in any election, understand what is at stake for themselves, their family, and their future. And so with that, I thank all of the leaders who are here. I look forward to our discussion, and because I promised that I have a map, I'm going to now show you that map. And you don't need to necessarily be able to read the words on the map, but you can see the color coding to understand this map represents our current assessment of the various laws that exist right now in these United States of America. Different approaches in different states to this issue, which some might argue has been by design to intentionally confuse people about their rights, but what in fact it has done without any question is made clear that the President's leadership, the leadership of the President's cabinet, and all of us at this table is critically necessary at this moment. So with that, I thank everyone for being here, and I will now turn it over to the head of our Gender Policy Council, Jen Klein. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice President Harris, and thank you all for being here today. I am going to move us quickly to my co-chair, Secretary Becerra, to talk about the work that you've been doing over at HHS and what you're planning to do.
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, thank you for setting us on a course. Thank you for giving us direction immediately, and thank you for being so prominent and vociferous in explaining how important it is to make sure we are protecting the rights of all Americans, but especially women. I am thrilled to have an opportunity to co-chair, along with my partner, Jen Klein, this task force. Thank you, Jen, for the work that you have done over the years, and certainly now as the co-chair on this task force. To my fellow colleagues on the cabinet and the members of the administration for springing to action so quickly, we say thank you very much. I know we speak for so many people who are waiting for us to do everything we can. Since the Supreme Court's misguided decision put the lives of millions of Americans, our fellow Americans, at risk and stripped away freedom and autonomy, we've all had to take action. And I know that we've all heard from, whether it's patients, doctors, family members, friends, everyone is concerned. At HHS, we heard those voices. We heeded the President's and the Vice President's call for action. Immediately upon the issuance of the Dobbs decision, we launched the reproductiverights.gov website. We were concerned and afraid that something like this might happen, so we put up that website as quickly as we could to make sure that people were not confused, they knew their rights, and we provided as much information and direction as we could immediately for people who were inquiring. We've gone on to protect patient privacy interests and to protect patients and providers from discrimination by issuing guidance. We recently did that by issuing guidance to roughly 60,000 U.S. retail pharmacies. We did it by notifying all health insurance carriers, reminding them of their obligation to respect the civil rights of all Americans and to not discriminate in the dispensation of services and care to all patients. We released our draft rule on non-discrimination in healthcare last week. And just because your state has decided to restrict your access to healthcare does not mean your privacy can be tossed to the wind or you can be discriminated against. We have issued guidance on the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act, EMTALA, which I know that the Attorney General will speak more to affirm that that law protects emergency department providers when offering legally mandated life or health-saving abortion services in emergency situations. EMTALA requires that providers exercise their clinical judgment about the right course of treatment to stabilize the patient, including abortion care if that's the treatment that the provider prescribes. And the law requires providers to offer stabilizing treatment to prevent a patient's condition from placing that patient in jeopardy, serious jeopardy, or at risk of serious impairment or dysfunction of bodily functions or any bodily organ. Providers may not delay care until a woman is in a life-threatening condition. We all know that. And we know that delayed care can threaten lives, impair essential bodily functions, and even compromise a woman's ability in the future to carry a healthy pregnancy to term. I want to thank Attorney General Garland for this week taking action to enforce EMTALA in our courts to protect women's access to care by taking on anyone who would try to violate this law. We still have much to do, and we're going to continue forward, including, for example, in making sure medication abortion is available to women throughout this country. And we won't stop. We were given direction early on by the President and the Vice President. We will continue to move forward. Turn it back to you, Jen.
Thank you, Secretary Becerra. And now I'd like to turn to the Attorney General.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, Vice President Harris, for bringing us together today. Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Secretary Becerra, for highlighting the urgency of this crisis and for your partnership. In the 5 weeks since the Supreme Court overturned Roe and Casey, legislatures across the country have taken steps to impose bans and other restrictions on access to abortion with devastating consequences for women's health, their safety, and their civil rights. And we know that the harms caused by these laws have been and will continue to be especially severe for people of color and for those of limited means. Since the day that Dobbs was decided, the Justice Department has made clear that we will be relentless in our efforts to protect and advance reproductive freedom. As we have said repeatedly, Women who reside in states that have banned access to abortion must remain free to seek that care in states where it is legal. Under fundamental First Amendment principles, people must also remain free to inform and counsel each other about the reproductive care that is available in other states. States may not ban the abortion medication mifepristone on disagreement with the FDA's expert judgment about its efficacy and safety. And federal agencies may continue to provide reproductive health services to the extent authorized by federal law. Last week, I also said that the Department is vigilantly monitoring state laws and enforcement actions to ensure that states do not infringe on federal protections of reproductive rights. And I said that when they do, we will consider every tool at our disposal, including filing affirmative cases, statements of interest, and intervening in private litigation. Yesterday, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit against the state of Idaho to hold invalid that state's criminal prohibition on providing abortions, as applied to women who are suffering medical emergencies. As we explained in our complaint, Idaho's near total ban on abortion directly conflicts with the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, or EMTALA. That federal law requires hospitals receiving Medicare funds to provide necessary stabilizing treatment to people suffering from an emergency medical condition. As I said when we announced this suit, it does not matter what state a hospital subject to EMTALA is located in. If a patient comes into an emergency room with a medical emergency jeopardizing the patient's life or health, the hospital must provide the treatment necessary to stabilize that condition. And this includes abortion when that is the necessary treatment. Any state law that prevents a hospital from fulfilling its obligations under EMTALA violates federal law. The Justice Department will also be filing a motion to dismiss the Texas lawsuit challenging HHS's guidance under EMTALA. The law could not be clearer, and we are going to vigorously litigate this suit to ensure women get the emergency care to which they are entitled under federal law. Led by Associate Attorney General Vanita Gupta, the Department's Reproductive Rights Task Force will continue to build on these efforts to protect reproductive freedom. Its work includes monitoring state laws that infringe on federal constitutional protections, evaluating appropriate actions in response to those laws, including filing lawsuits and statements of interest, and coordinating technical assistance to both Congress and the states on federal constitutional and statutory considerations. 5 weeks ago, I promised that the Justice Department would work tirelessly to protect reproductive freedom and that we would not waver from our founding responsibility to protect the civil rights of all Americans. That is what we have done, and that is what we will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Attorney General Garland. Now, there's supposed to be, through the miracles of technology, we're supposed to be joined by Secretary McDonough. So Secretary McDonough, if you are with us, look at that. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jen Klein, very much. And Madam Vice President, I think, Mr. President, if you're still there, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you. I want to congratulate you both on the passage of the PACT Act in the Senate last night. This would not have happened without your having called for it in the State of the Union. And the fact is that it's a very important day for veterans, their survivors, their family members. As you know, among the conditions covered by the, presumptively covered by the PACT Act are cancers that our troops, men and women, including women veterans, the fastest growing cohort of our veterans, 300,000 of them of childbearing age, among the conditions covered for them in this new law will be cancers. And last month, our excellent lead researcher and our excellent lead oncologist briefed our press corps on the progress we're making on treating cancer because of your cancer moonshot, Mr. President. A reasonable question is, and frankly, a question our press corps asked, is whether a pregnant veteran whose cancer is connected to her service in Iraq or Afghanistan can have access to that cutting edge, life-saving treatment that we provide at VA, or will rather, because of Dobbs and associated state law requirements, will she have to wait 9 months to get access to life-saving treatment and life-saving care? Now, these are the patient safety issues that we deal with in VA every day of the type that you've each discussed. And it's very helpful for us at VA to have the opportunity to get together with this team in the cabinet and your experts to help us resolve those questions. So Madam Vice President, Mr. President, thank you very much for getting us together today to resolve these questions and to ensure that we can provide that life-saving care, that life-saving treatment to our veterans, including our fastest growing cohort of veterans, women veterans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary McDonough. And now we're going to transition to the closed portion of our meeting. So we'll just take a brief break.